Good morning, everyone. It's Saturday, which means it's time for yet another Salty Saturday. I am your host, Mr. Kadish, the belabored producer of the Salty Nerd podcast. With me today is our fantastic panel of nerds, starting with Dutch Butters himself.
Hello.
Wearing the podcast studio hat. How you doing, Dutch?
I got to advertise a little bit. I got to do something for the podcast or for the studio since I'm never there. But yeah. Hi. What's up, guys? How are you?
Hey, bro.
I can't talk. How are you? I got some exciting news. I just got some exciting news, and all of my trauma and effort came back good. You know, my shitting in a box experiment last week with my color guard, I had to send in, and I came back negative. I just got my results back. So no ass cancer here.
Just to recap, Dutch, being the old fuck that you are, you had to poop in a box.
Yes.
Send it in for analysis.
It was very traumatic, dude. I've never done nothing like this. You get this box in the mail, and it's got this little cartoon on it. It says, "Hi, I want you to shit in me." And it's like, it's terrible. So you take it apart, and you get all the things. You have it all set out on your kitchen counter, and there's like 15 pieces, and you got to put a model together. And like this goes on the toilet, and then you put the bucket in the bracket that's in the toilet. Then you put the thing down. Then you got to shit in the bucket, literally poop in the bucket. Then you got to take the bucket off the thing, fiddle with the poop, right? With the one thing and put it in the thing and put some water or put this liquid in it and package it all back up and send it away. It's awesome. It
sounds just like more content for your OnlyFans.
Dude, it wasn't fun. Brian, don't do it. Just if they want to make you do a test, just tell them to take you to the place and give you some drugs and give you the old Roto-Rooter, dude. It's probably way less traumatic.
I didn't even know it was traumatic, and I'm still gonna opt for the Roto-Rooter.
Yeah,
yeah.
Just
because that's my kink. So
just because
Odin knows what I'm talking about.
Well, I don't know about that, but what I do know is that the entire time, all I would be thinking about is the Robin Williams sketch where he talks about how he had to go through that, and he became a walking like. Just the whole way through.
Yeah, but it is negative, so that's good. And the whole time, I was talking about it in Discord. I'm sorry if I'm derailing your show, Matt, but I got somebody sent me the video movie skit that they did on Saturday Night Live with Woody Harrelson, where the color guard boxes are animated, and they come up to him on his porch, and they said, "Just do it, drop your load in me. We really want you to do it." They made it really gross and weird. It was super funny. You guys got to check that out.
Speaking of gross and weird, Brian from the podcast is here. How you doing, Brian?
What's up? I just think it's really hilarious how Matt spends all this time and effort to produce this show. He researches every single story, finds all the links. He meticulously emails all of us, texts us, makes sure we're going to be here. He is the unsung hero of this stream. And immediately it's overshadowed by Dutch Butters and his shit in the box.
Shit in the box.
Well, just rename the stream "Shit in the Box."
I'm not doing bad, man. My little DC channel that I was just sort of ranting on recently started getting tons of views. So looks like I might have a third.
About a month.
Yeah, I might have a therd leg to my YouTube empire of shit.
Well,
your third leg
YouTube empire.
A tripod.
I want everyone to know that after this stream is over, we will be redirecting you to the Brain Show, which occurs immediately after Salty Saturdays, where Brian and Shane, his brother, talk about political topics and dare the YouTube gods to ban them permanently.
Yeah,
it's not starting an hour after we end ours this time, right? It's immediately after.
It's immediately after now.
Okay.
So it's literally like I just go to the bathroom real quick, then come start it. And today I'm actually changing the topic from Trump and Zelensky to the N-word. We're really hoping that YouTube.
Jeez, dude,
we're really making. You're gonna see the images. I'm actually updating the image as we speak. We're really pushing the limits. We've been demonetized 3 times. So
yeah. Well, that's what makes your show so fun, is you guys
Let's go for the hat trick.
Speaking of fun, returning from his long hiatus of food poisoning and religious holidays is Odin of OMB Reviews, the Lord of the Shelves, the King of the Pineapple Pizza. How you doing, Odin?
I'm doing much better this weekend. Thank you. I hope everyone has continued to have a blessed Easter. We have a whole season of Easter up until Pentecost. So very exciting times, and It's great to have box office stuff to talk about, especially, and culture knows this, especially after all the stuff with Sinners. I don't know about you, but I'm still getting those Sinner simps in my chat comment section saying, "Oh, it's such a flop, isn't it? Oh, ho, ho, ho."
Real quick,
Yeah, I do have a real quick question. And Odin, I know you're a very hardcore Catholic, and I'm sorry
Yes.
about the Pope.
Yes.
But has the betting websites put up the odds for who the next Pope is going to be yet?
and are you for Trump being Pope?
Yeah,
So-
you're aware that Trump is going to go for Pope.
Who's the hands-on favorite? That's
Okay,
what I
so
wanna
there's
know.
two things there. One, thoughts on the whole like Trump as the Pope thing. I'm not really offended by that because I'm old enough to understand memes and the internet, and so
Right.
it's like, again, as long as it's being done in a light spirit, no problem at all with that. Obviously, he's never going to be Pope, but again, that's just kind of the nature of it.
They said he would never be
They said he'd never be president. Yeah.
No, but this is something where it's like, actually, no, like it's kind of impossible.
Make
at this point.
Catholicism great again.
Let's just say, not only is he non-Catholic, and there's ever been a non-Catholic elected to the papacy, but a non-cardinal hasn't been elected since the 1300s. So chances, again, very slim. But the other thing, as far as the betting odds, first off, you should not be betting on papal elections. It's a really, really bad
that's
thing.
very bad.
And also, they have no idea what the hell they're talking about.
Wow.
Because again, politics is one thing. The whole wisdom of the crowd stuff makes a lot of sense when it's betting markets saying who's going to be president and stuff. Like, there's actually something legitimate there with papal elections, because literally things happen all the time that just no one can really put a finger on.
What
and
I was
explain.
really wondering is there a favorite though that is just one of them that people think is going to?
I mean, basically, it
Come out
depends on what kind of conclave you're thinking it's going to be. If you're thinking, okay, they just want to continue the status quo, yeah, there's probably a pretty certain person that's going to be. Is it going to be a change where they hey, we want to have things be a bit more clear, not as much ambiguity? Okay, there's a decision of who might be leading there too. So there's like a handful of people that are called papabile, which means that they're seen as papable, possibly being pope, seem to have certain support among certain members. But really, because of how the whole conclave process goes, if any of these cardinals are actually speaking to people and telling people what's going on, that actually gives them an automatic excommunication from the church. So that's why you're never, anyone who claims they have information, it's like, okay, you're sharing information that should, by its very nature, make the person that's told you this excommunicated from the church. So that's why you're not really going to see a lot of information get leaked.
And if we see orange smoke, we know that Trump is the new pope.
Oh, there's orange smoke. Actually, I was going to
orange
say, I
smoke.
think that's the sign that the fires of hell have consumed.
I love that video of the reporter asking him who he thinks should be pope, and he's like, "Me, of course. I think I'd make a great pope."
Obviously,
Obviously.
living under a rock.
Yeah. And speaking of people who would make a great pope, finally, after much negotiation, we got him on the show, Mr. H himself, Mr. H Reviews. Thank you for being here. I know that you are in disguise so that Tom Connors Jr. doesn't start any beef with you, but thank you for being here. And much like Andor, who recast Senator Bail Organa from Jimmy Smits, we did not do any recasting. We stuck true to our guns, and we brought in the original Mr. H. How you doing, Mr. H?
Great, mate. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. I love it. I love it. Think your show is fantastic. I appreciate the invite. And while this is an inconvenient time for me on a Saturday in the middle of the day when normally I'm just lifting weights up and down endlessly, I'll say thanks for the invite, mate.
You're very welcome, Mr. H. And we thank you for being here. After all the trouble we went to have you on the thumbnail, it's very nice for you to show up and not, just bail on us because you have better things to do than hang out with a bunch of nerds. Appreciate you.
I appreciate you too, mate.
Yes. And speaking of Tom Connors Jr., he is awake, sort of. He's probably busy eating cereal, but he will be joining us as we go along throughout the show. So stay tuned for that. Tom Connors Jr. will be here. I promise you guys.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch or Ninja Turtles cereal?
Wheaties, mate. Wheatie, mate. The Thunderbolts Wheaties box.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, comrade, it is so funny. I have an accent. Isn't this so funny?
And speaking of which, boom, right on time.
Oh, there he is.
His ears must have been burning. How you doing, Tom Connors Jr.?
Where can Dutch Butters get Ninja Turtle cereal? Because I could get like crack prices for that.
Didn't they make a Ninja Turtle cereal once? I'm pretty sure they did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like the
back in the
90s.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah, the new stuff ain't nothing like it used to be. Yeah, the new stuff is
It was basically just a rip off of the the Lucky Charms cereal, right?
Sort of. It had some differences. It actually had like what they called ninja nets, which were basically checks. So that's what made them a bit different. See,
and the cereal was green for the most part, wasn't it?
they had little marshmallows of each of the characters and stuff like that.
So Tom Connors Jr., I know that Mr. H is a member of this panel today. Is there going to be any conflict between the two of you?
I have no issues. I didn't even know. I thought he wasn't coming.
Oh, mate, I'm sorry. I couldn't miss out on the opportunity.
That's not
Tom wasn't here for the bit. Culture is acting like
I
Mr. H,
was, but
okay.
All right. Speaking of bits, guys, we got our leaderboard up here. So want to give a big shout out to Scotty Dub, who is not only our top contributor to the podcast, but also our top super chatter. He dropped $500 in one go, dethroning Made You Say Butts, who still is number 2 at $300 for his contribution to the show. Really appreciate you guys. And Mexican Iron Man, who did not show up last week, I will point out. He's still, with that one absence on his report card, still our most consistent donator. So appreciate you, Mexican Iron Man. And of course, all the people who are giving out gifted subs to our chat. The artist formerly known as Jillian N, Jillian H, Major Chai Chai, and Eric Winberg. Appreciate you guys showing up and gifting those Salty Nerd podcast memberships. It's very, very nice of you. Our goal for today is 10 new members during the course of the stream. So if we can get 10 new members signing up before the stream ends, we will have succeeded in our mission in life. And of course, guys, if you like the show, be sure to share and subscribe to the channel. We're trying to hit 25,000 subscribers before the end of the year. Hopefully we can do that. And if you are interested in joining our community outside of the live streams and the chats, be sure to go to saltynerdiscord.com, join our Discord server. There you can talk about movies and video games and all sorts of nerdy stuff. And then speaking of nerdy stuff, we also want to give a big shout out to Mephisto's Movie Reviews, who does the Real McCoy podcast right after this show ends. But if you don't want to watch him talk about movies in a non-political way, you can get super political with The Brain Show, which occurs, this says 12:30, but it's pretty much right after the show.
Right
ends.
after the show.
However long it takes Brian to go to the bathroom, that's when it starts.
Yeah.
That's it. Brian, what are you going to be talking about today on The Brain Show?
We're going to be talking about the lady in the park that was challenged to say the N-word and then proceeded to say it like 400 times on camera. She started a GoFundMe because she was being persecuted politically, and now she has almost $400,000 in the bank, which is,
Wait, is that what you're gonna do? Is that the trick?
Right, that's the trick. So like you can work hard, you can hustle on YouTube, go to work early, try to climb
Aren't
the corporate
you missing
ladder.
a very important part of that story though? Not only was she challenged, was the guy that was taking the videotape, wasn't he like a convicted diddler?
Oh yeah, no, there's a lot more to this story.
Yeah, I was gonna say it gets really dicey. It's like honestly, that's probably why she's getting all this money, because she called the diddler that too, basically.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. It's not just that, but like on the surface, it looks like a white woman was challenged.
My question is, what the hell was he doing there in the first place? Yeah, that was my big question.
Hey,
I can
bro,
give a shit.
Do you have a child here? Why? Why?
Yeah,
Are
why are you
filming,
here?
bro? I don't get it. Yeah, no, there's a lot of questions here.
And by the look of him, I think she should have added sand in front of that. I'm just saying, but like, no.
Oh my god!
Come on, I'm trying to make money too.
All right, we're gonna start a GoFundMe for Tom. He's about to be canceled.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much uncancelable. It seems like
you are quite the Teflon Tom.
I dodge it and duck it.
Yeah,
Teflon Tom. That's
one thing we don't want to dodge and duck are super chats. So we got John Yulden, who became a YouTube member. Brian, he's your Stargate watch buddy. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, every Sunday we're watching Stargate. We started off at season 1, episode 1, and this Sunday we're actually doing a triple feature, and we're doing like 3 episodes. We realize there's no way we're gonna
triple feature.
Triple. There's no way we're gonna get through all of SG1 by the time my kids get through college, unless we start doing 3 episodes at a time. So here we go.
Wow, 3 episodes in one sitting.
And basically watch it. We stream it in Discord and we watch along on YouTube. It's a really fun time.
And Jillian H. gifted 5 Salty Nerd podcast memberships,
Nice.
the queen of gifted memberships. Thank you, Jillian. And of course, Eric Woodenberg coming in with his 1 Salty Nerd podcast membership. Every show gifts that 1 membership. That is consistency for you. Then we got Mark Daly for $5. Thunderbolts are out of jail. Thunderbolts are loose. Feel the panic. Hear the snore. Thunderbolts are loose. Thunder, thunder, thunderbolts. Yawn. I don't know if that's their official theme, but I'm gonna take it.
I'm confused about that movie.
Thunderbolts are on the loose.
Well, we'll talk about it in a little bit. John Yulden for £4.99, aka £5. Have a great show and weekend, guys. Everyone in the chat.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Kalikioki for $2. Mr. H looks different. Can't put my finger on it. He is in disguise because he doesn't want to trigger Tom. So this is just his way of being polite on the panel. And
I can
then
be civil.
Then we got Ryan for €20. If Andor had followed a series of well-crafted Star Wars shows and movies, would the true fans have received the series with more sympathy thus far than has been afforded it? Well, I will tell you this much. I was just talking to Dutch Butters before we started the show. I am super impressed with Andor season 2 so far. I've been loving it. It's really, really good in my opinion. Of course, I was a fan of the first season, but to me, this is the best Disney Star Wars we've gotten since Disney took over. So I'll just leave it at that.
I can't talk about it because I don't have Disney Plus. So
yeah, you've been unplussed.
I'm unplussed.
And then we got Mark Daly again for $5. Amazon is the first 12 T-Bolts issues in a Kindle TPB. Justice Like Lightning for $10. Better use your movie money. So I think he's talking about you can get an actual Thunderbolts comic on Amazon that's better than the movie for $10. Mr. H, you were muted there, so we couldn't hear what you said.
I said trade paperback, mate.
Trade paperback. There you go. Thank you. Yeah. Oddly enough, one of the original artists for the Thunderbolts comic book, Kim Jacinto, did the illustrations for my book, Earthman Jack. So,
that's interesting.
Fun little fact there. Then we got Fuck You Fat Ho for $1.99.
Wow.
Tom, do you want to read this one for me?
So Thunderbolts through the Bay of Pirates, bored 30 minutes later. Yes. Glad I didn't buy it on the street.
And Aurora Uplinks has become a member of the Salty Nerd channel. Thank you guys so much.
Extra salty, mate. Extra
salty, yes.
Yeah.
Extra salty, yes. All right, guys. So speaking of extra salty, let's talk a little bit about ads on streaming and how they kind of defeat the purpose of all that stuff. Much like Brian's keyboard as he types during a live.
That wasn't me. That wasn't me.
It wasn't me either.
It was both my keyboard and Sadie's nails clicking on the wood.
I always mute my keyboard now.
There you go. There you go. All right. So, guys, this Hollywood Reporter article came out that said streaming is now just as crowded with ads as old school TV. More than 70% of all viewing in the first quarter of 2025 came on ad-supported platforms. A new report from Nielsen finds, and Nielsen is the company that kind of tracks television ratings and stuff like that. But what's really interesting about this article is about how basically people cut the cord to go to streaming so that they could avoid having to pay for all these channels that they don't watch and not have to have ads interrupt their entertainment time. But it turns out that that is no longer the case because nearly 3/4 of TV use, 72.4%, in the first quarter was from ad-supported platforms, and only 27.6% of viewing in the United States was commercial-free. Those are very low numbers. Disney Plus ad revenue is expected to top $197 million in the first quarter of 2025 from ads, a 98% spike from a year earlier, while Netflix may see $502 million in ad revenue in the same frame, which would be up 88%. But the king of them all, Amazon Prime, could reap $476 million, up 82%. And streaming as a whole averaged about 43.3% of TV use in the quarter, meaning that a large majority of streaming viewing, about 70% of people viewing stuff on streaming, are watching commercials. And cable accounted for about 28.9% of ad viewing, and broadcast TV accounted for 28.7%. And you can see this in the platform where basically commercials on streaming are like the new big thing. And it seems like a lot of consumers are okay with this because they don't want to have to pay for like a billion different streaming services. So they choose to go with the free ad tier and just watch the ads as they play. And some streaming stuff doesn't even give you a choice. Those are called fast channels, which I think are basically like ad supported television, or free ad supported television is what the acronym stands for. But this is like a huge shift in the culture around streaming, where basically it's like, okay, I'm willing to pay $7 to $10 a month to have like a commercial free experience. And then these streaming platforms have slowly upped their pricing and offered free ad supported stuff, where they're actually making, in some cases, more money than they are with their subscription tier. So Dutch, as one of the people on this panel who has unplussed himself from Disney Plus and gone the route of saving money by watching fast channels, what's your take on this? Do you think that this kind of defeats the purpose of streaming?
So first off, I unplussed myself from Disney because I just got tired of their terrible products. I couldn't give them any more money for their Star Wars trash, and it just wasn't good. But I had the ad-free version, and now I undid my package, so now I don't have Hulu and I don't have Disney anymore. But I do have a lot of the other streaming services, and I find them almost unwatchable now. Like all of you, and probably most people in the chat, I switched over to ad-free versions of most of the streaming services, and I still had at least the lower tier of our cable, because I do like to watch sports and some of the news and stuff. But for about 6 months of my life, it was really nice. You know, I could go watch a game, and then I could come upstairs and I could watch on my TV in my room anything I wanted without commercials, and it was super fun. And now all of a sudden I have more commercials than I've ever had before, and I'm still paying the same amount of money as I did before. And I find it incredibly annoying, and I'm not really sure what I'm going to do about it, because I hate commercials, and I got the streaming services to begin with so I could watch these shows without them. And, you know, I guess I'm just going to have to just reevaluate all of them and actually figure out what I watch and what I want to watch, because my viewing patterns have gone way down since I started. I've been playing way more games these days. I hardly watch anything on these streaming services right now. I don't really have a lot of interest. So yeah, there's going to be a big reevaluation coming in my house. But there are a couple, like Peacock, for instance. I think it's Peacock. They do this thing where they just give you a group of ads at the start of a show. Like if I want to watch a movie, I think they'll play like 3 minutes of ads, and then they go, enjoy the rest of your movie. I think it's on Peacock, and I'm a little bit more okay with that. At least you kind of know what you're getting into. But what's really annoying is when you're going through a TV show or a movie or anything, you got the ads every 15 minutes. I watched something, I forget what channel it was, but it was like a 20-minute sitcom from like 10 years ago. Brian, you're muted. And it had like 7 commercial breaks on like a 20-minute show. It was impossible to watch. So yeah, I don't know, man. I just find it really frustrating and crazy how much the ads have come back with these streaming services. It's impossible to watch them.
Yeah. So. Well, Tom Connors Jr., you're kind of a Nostradamus when it comes to this type of thing, because you predicted that all the streaming is going to go back to basically being broadcast TV. What's your take on this?
Yeah, actually, Script Doctor and I have talked about this for years, where the problem is once most people dropped cable television, the networks were going to realize, and the studios were going to realize, wait a minute here, we're not making nearly as much money as we thought we would, because streaming wasn't initially meant, at least they didn't meant for it to be to replace cable and television. It was just supposed to replace your video store. Then it slowly became replacing your theater, and then now it's replacing your television, and it's going so fast for them they can't even keep up with it. And then they finally realized, oh crap, we make a heck of a lot more money selling advertising like we used to on television than we do, trying to get 10, 15, $20 per person anymore. Right? Because I mean, the cable companies used to be able to survive but only because they charge you 50, 60, 70 bucks a month plus 10, 12 bucks for a month for HBO. And if you want a package, you can get maybe HBO and Cinemax for 20. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you're still at most people's average cable bill was up there, but now people are starting to look at their streaming bill and they're going, wait a minute here. I'm spending just as much or twice as much on streaming as I was on cable, and I can't find half the shit I want to watch. Right? My dad, he's been forced into streaming now because of sports, because that was one avenue where I said, once that changes, that's going to change the game altogether, because you have a lot of old folks and boomers who are never going to move until you tell them they have to.
Right.
And once you start taking sports and certain things like that and put them on there, you're going to have folks like my dad, who is 70-something years old and is now griping because he's got to deal with Amazon and YouTube and all this other stuff just to watch his damn Brewer game, you know? So this was inevitable. It was bound to happen. They couldn't afford to sustain themselves as the underwear gnomes forever in the streaming services. I am not surprised that Tubi and whatever other ones that are doing a lot more of the ad-based, you know, tiers are doing better than the rest, because the people are watching them. They don't have, it takes nothing to turn Tubi on. You technically don't even really have to have a subscription to it, depending on where you watch it. So like, it's so simple for anybody to just bop it up, and you can watch everything from Ninja Turtles to Perfect Strangers. You know what? And guess what? People grew up all the time watching commercials. In fact, I've talked to some people who just do it now. They flip on some of these channels just for nostalgia, just because it used to be what television was like, just to watch television with commercials.
It's not the commercials that I don't mind commercials. What I mind is there being more commercials than there is substance to the show.
You're right, because
it's almost a 50-50 split now. It's insane.
You could talk about, like, you know, through the 50s on through like the 70s up through the early 80s, like the average commercial break in an hour, in a half hour to an hour, you know, half hour was like 3 minutes, hour was like 6 to 7 minutes at tops. By the time you get to the 90s, you know, you're talking an average hour has about 15 minutes of commercial breaks. So you're not wrong.
A 30-minute show's like 18 minutes long.
42 minutes now. It used to be like 47, right? So like, that was kind of my point. Maybe 10, 12 minutes, but still.
Well, I want to throw this to Mr. H, because, you know, the Tubi model, which was kind of like at the forefront of the fast channel model, which is basically like, you know, anyone can access the app, anyone can watch anything on the app. It's just ads pop up, and by and large, it doesn't seem like streaming viewers mind, because up to 70%, according to this Hollywood Reporter article, of streaming viewing now has commercials. And I personally would hate that stuff. I actually pay for YouTube Premium, so I don't have to watch commercials on YouTube either. But what do you think this means for the future of streaming? Is it just going to kind of digress into the old broadcast model?
I think, mate, that the streaming model is going to be the place where they basically just turn every channel into cable TV all over again, mate. I think you're going to be paying for terrible. I can't do this anymore.
It's okay.
It's going in and out.
Yeah, it is. You can't. You can't have this actually devolve into where I think Tom, Script Doctor, many of us actually said early on that it's going to just become cable TV 2.0, and it even more extreme. One of the examples I'll use is Tubi actually had a decent commercial to show ratio similar to what we were experiencing like 80s, 90s television, whereas now, if you go in particular to Prime over on Amazon, you're getting like bombed with commercials.
I got like a 4 or 5 minute commercial break the other day. I couldn't believe it.
Dude,
nuts.
And so I'm like, okay. I mean, I didn't mind when I'm paying for Amazon Prime. I was getting no commercials, and the other option was to get commercials with Amazon, right? Now that they give everybody commercials, unless you pay even more money, I'm like, it's just difficult for me to watch anything there. And look, Tubi, I'm trying to think about who else had just a reasonable number of
Peacock.
That probably is true. Yeah, that Peacock thing was probably where you got some of the most reasonable commercial breaks. But I mean, I got set up for like a skippable, like hour-long commercial on YouTube, right? On my other account, right? Because I also pay for premium on this account because I do not I'm done with ads. I'm just done. So I don't think we'll be able to escape it. I think this will be the new version of cable, and people are going to get frustrated with it. So yeah, you maybe make more money for the short term, but pretty soon, because you're still slopping it up with anything that you provide, whether it be television or film, if you can continue to grind out the cheese whiz, people are going to unsubscribe from that too. I mean, it's really no more expensive to buy your physical media and rewatch it. Like I have all the MASH and all the other stuff that would be the things I would normally just have on in the background to like keep me company or friends or whatever.
Yeah.
I own all that stuff. I don't need the streaming services so much anymore. The only streaming services I absolutely keep for no other reason than it's basically all the good content rolled into one is the Taylor Sheridan channel.
Paramount Plus.
Yeah.
You guys know all the debates that like Fox and CBS will have sometimes with like DirecTV or Dish Network, and then all of their channels will go off for a while until they're done debating whatever they're going to debate. You just basically created that situation in your own home.
Yeah.
Right. Because now this month, Dad's got to debate and decide between the kids. Are we keeping Disney Plus and getting Netflix, or which one are we going to get rid of Amazon Prime? Because we can't afford all of them.
Yeah.
So somebody's going to have to go without.
Well, I want to ask Brian about Peacock, because we all know he loves the cock and has been watching it since the beginning. Peacock's business model was kind of interesting because it was always ad supported. Like,
right.
If you paid for a subscription to Peacock, it just means you got less ads in the free version.
Right.
And I believe it's still that way. But Peacock was from Comcast.
There's two tiers, so less ads or completely no ads. So you can tailor your experience. What do you want to pay, dude?
Yeah, and I think that we here at the Kadish household, we have like the less ads tier. So like we still get ads when we watch Peacock, but it's not as many. However, like whenever I am on Peacock, the ad insertion is noticeable because I pay to get no ads on like Netflix and Amazon and stuff like that.
Right.
But I want to ask you about that experience. Do you think that Peacock's business model is the superior one to all the other streaming services?
I do. I think Peacock had the right idea from the start. And I'm on record saying Peacock is the best streaming platform, dollars to dollars. I think like value for the content they have, it's just the best one. And partly is because their model. So if you choose to not pay anything, you're gonna watch commercials like it's network TV. You could choose to pay a little bit. I'm talking like $6, and you're gonna watch substantially less commercials. Great. Or you can choose to pay $12 and there's no commercials. I don't see an issue here. And even if those numbers were higher or they doubled over time, you can always drop it down and keep your content. Also, the ratio of content they have compared to other platforms is sort of insane. So it's a really good platform. They also don't do that thing that drives me nuts that Paramount and other platforms do, where even if you're paying for ad-free, they force you to watch a promo before the episode. There's almost nothing I hate more than knowing that I'm paying for Paramount Plus and an ad for RuPaul's Drag Queen shows up before watching some family-friendly content with my kids.
Read the DM in the private chat if you haven't.
The TV down and smash it every time I see it, man.
Read the private chat if you haven't already, Brian, because I said the same damn. I just said that exact same thing. In fact, I used Paramount Plus as my example because they do that before every show, and it's like 90 seconds. You can't fast forward. You can't get past it. Nothing you do will let you get past it. And to me, that's the most irritating one.
Let me ask you guys: Are you watching the Taylor Sheridan channel on Amazon, or are you watching it through the actual app? Because on Amazon, they do give you the option to skip those previews.
It won't let me.
So Max has a promo too, and there's an option to skip it, which I'm cool with a promo if there's an option to skip it. But Paramount just forces you, like that scene from Clockwork Orange where it's like, watch RuPaul. and I got my kids in the room, like we're turning on like some family-friendly Survivor or something. And it's like gay guys dancing around in tight dresses. And I'm like, what's going on, man?
Oh, well, don't you know that is family friendly now, Brian?
No, I disagree.
So I want to throw this to Odin because Odin, this report came from Nielsen ratings, And one of the frustrating things about streaming is like, it's very hard to get data out of like these streaming providers. It's not like, the networks where all their numbers are public and stuff like that. Like these guys kind of hold it close to the chest. But what's interesting is that a lot of these streaming networks that were kind of in trouble, like for instance, Disney Plus, they were in the hole on their memberships, but through an ad tier, they're now making like $197 million in the first 3 months of 2025. And streaming as a whole seems to be moving in this direction. What's your take on this new development and how consumers of streaming services seem to be okay with it?
I mean, it's brilliant for them because they have figured out a way to not only get a lot of people to pay a lot of money for the ad-free tiers, but now they're also able to somehow hold on to those people while at the same time, in some cases, even throwing ads still in their direction and then racking up all of this almost free cash in a certain way with their, quote, free tiered options or their lower price tiered options where they have a lot of ads that give their support. Yeah. And as Tom mentioned, right, this is totally a return in many ways to the old school way that television actually worked. And, this is something that I've been saying too for a while when I remember when I was getting YouTube TV, before I gave that random crap up, because basically I was like, oh, so the cost now going up exponentially. Because when that thing first came out, it was a pretty good deal. And then over time, it's gotten more and more and more expensive. Like, okay, so this is now just cable. Like, this is now just the same thing that you did before. You paid for your cable packages, everything like that. You take all your streaming services, add those all together, and it's equivalent in many ways, maybe even more, depending on the tiers you're getting, especially if you're going for all the ad-free tiers, to a comparable, cable package today, right? With VOD and, your TiVo and whatever the heck else, right? A lot of these boomers tend to use. My parents are huge on that. When it's always funny because like, oh, look, we have all these episodes of that show recorded for you. And I'm like, oh, that's cute. That's really cute. Yeah. It's like, I have those too. But I think that what's going to end up happening is at some point, there's going to be a break, especially if you just look at the economy, right? The economy is still not really in a great place. People are still a lot more careful with their money today. And I do wonder if there's going to be a point where people maybe go that route of, like what I've done in my house, which is buy physical media, put it on your own server. Boom, you have your own, you can create your own Netflix server. You can create your own home media server, right? I talk about it all the time because it might have some upfront costs, but especially as technology is advancing and the fact that you don't really even need a whole lot to get started with it. I mean, an old computer, an old laptop, you can literally use as
an old laptop, a hard drive, and Plex.
Yeah,
you're good to go,
and you can get all that stuff running up pretty easily. So I think that might be something that people start to run with a little bit more often in that way. And then also too, there is of course the R direction as well, and there's a lot of automated systems that support that. So the more they make people spend money and the more inconvenient things go, the more likely you're to push people, especially in the the high seas direction.
I got a question real quick, Matt. Have any of you guys just been pushed to the point with the ads to where you just get frustrated and go, okay, fine, screw you. Here's my money. Give me the ads free version. Because that's what happened to me with YouTube.
Yeah.
I finally just said, okay, premium. I'm going to do YouTube premium. Screw it. I need it. I love it now. But what's your level? Where's the obnoxiousness?
YouTube's the only one that I would do that with just because of how often I use it. Yeah. Because all the other ones, it's like, okay, if I'm going to sit down and watch a movie, okay, I'd rather just go through, buy the movie, put it on my Plex, put it on my own Plex server, things like that. Like that's where I would go with that. But for YouTube, it's like that's what I'm listening to when I'm on the way to work and my podcast and YouTube music to a certain degree also. And so that's the reason why I even went in that direction because I held back on that for a long time and I tried to find every alternative that there was. Yep. The issue is that yes, you can use Brave browser, yes, you can use ad blockers, and when you're sitting down at a computer, that works. Doesn't work the same on a phone. And there are some things you can do to get around it on a phone, but it's, again, this is where that laziness comes in, that first world problem comes in, where it's just not as convenient. And sometimes, especially if your brain works the way mine does, that having that convenience is really important.
It's also obnoxious, though. Like Amazon, it's not just the amount of ads, it's where they position them.
Oh, it's terrible.
It's terrible, and it ruins the experience. I actually ponied up like the $4 a month or whatever, because I'm sitting there watching, I think it was like Beast Games or something with my kid. And it was obnoxious where they would inject 2 ads, so often. And it was always right around when content was starting to get good. I couldn't get into to my experience. So I just ponied it up. But I refused to pay for Netflix. By the way, guys, ad blocker works on all these services. So if you're using a computer and not watching on your TV, just flip on ad blocker and you can probably avoid a lot of this stuff.
I think you can also run into loss of your account, according to some, but maybe that's just in places where they can do that. What I'll suggest is this: if your content isn't good enough for to keep people's interest through the commercial breaks, you're likely limiting your overall penetration in the market and the number of dollars you can gain from any kind of ad revenue. So I think in the future, whether it be a first world problem or not, as Odin suggested, I think people will just stop being interested even in streaming things, which would also include YouTube, which actually just continues to grow on television. In fact, it set another record for its television penetration. So
yeah, YouTube is slowly replacing traditional TV, and but you know who we're not replacing, guys, is Mexican Iron Man, who showed up for $4.99. Here's my super chat from last week when I was at Tactical Training, Mr. Kadish. He's going to have to change his name to Mexican John Wick pretty soon if he keeps up all that tactical.
One week.
Juan Wick.
Yeah, that's right. Juan Wick, yes. But guys, let's talk, since we're on the topic of Hollywood, let's talk a little bit about Hollywood's basically running itself into the ground with all of its burdensome regulations and basically driving production, movie production, TV production, all that stuff away to other places that are just a little bit easier to shoot in. So here's this article from The Guardian, and basically it says, "It feels empty. Is Hollywood's film and TV production a death spiral?" And this is actually a pretty interesting article where it basically talks about how, LA and Hollywood in general has systematically driven away all the productions to better places like Canada and Georgia and the UK, places that offer very aggressive tax incentives and make it cheaper to shoot there, and in some cases have cheaper labor as well. And that was the original allure of Hollywood, was like, back when the East Coast was more developed, people came out to Hollywood because the weather was better and it was easier to find cheap labor and all this other stuff. So you could shoot all year round for a very affordable price. And that is no longer the case. And basically, there's been a movement to try to save the Hollywood production industry by basically trying to give more tax incentives to studios so that, more productions will shoot there, because there's a lot of starving actors out there who, like, pilot season's almost non-existent now, especially after COVID and all the strikes and stuff like that. And but they're running into a problem where basically the politicians who are trying to, or I should say the advocacy groups that are trying to push this thing through the politicians are saying, oh, we don't want to give tax breaks to wealthy studio bosses because of the 1% and they're evil. And they also talk about, like environmental issues and, all this other stuff. But this quote I thought was kind of interesting, where it's like, this is how bleak it is. We're at a point where poor and working class people are advocating to our government to provide tax incentives for big film studios to keep the work in California so that we can keep working, because we can't compete with Atlanta, where the minimum wage and things like that are lower. They're taking advantage of tax opportunities, but also how much they have to pay in labor. And if anyone out there has ever lived in LA, that the cost of living in California is just like through the roof. Like they haven't
obscene.
Met a tax. They haven't met a tax they didn't like. Yeah. Brian can attest to this. And so like, it's much harder to earn a living, to just live in California.
Yep.
And what we're starting to see is a lot of people move to Texas because, the Texas area is slowly becoming like the new Hollywood. We've seen a lot of people move to Florida and to Georgia because so many productions are out there, even Canada. But what's interesting about this is basically the article kind of talks about how there are similarities between how when Detroit lost all of its car manufacturing and basically became a shithole, how Hollywood's kind of following the same model with like driving away a lot of their primary industry and making everything too expensive and all this other stuff. So I want to kind of talk about the future of Hollywood if they don't, adjust course. I mean, they couldn't even clear the red tape for the people who lost their homes in the fire recently. So how are they going to clear the red tape for the studios, right? So Brian, since you live in California, maybe you could give us some insight into how dire things are out there.
Yeah, California is rough. They say if you can live moderately in California, you can live anywhere. And the key is keeping the California wage, but moving to a place like Texas, where everything's more affordable, things are safer, better services, etc. A lot of my friends have been moving to Texas. I've actually, I can count on one hand how many couples that my wife and I spend time with, and that we trust, and that we go on vacations with, that kind of stuff. Maybe 4 or 5 people that we really enjoy spending time with. And out of those 4 or 5 people, 3 of those couples, one recently just announced it, already moved to Texas. So we're down to like our last couple here, you guys. Okay. And we can't leave because I have a daughter who has a heart condition, and we have to be close to her doctor, I couldn't convince him to move to Texas with us. So until she's a lot older, I'm sort of stuck here. And there's a lot of other things too. I have people that work for me and stuff that are here. Me leaving would be a drastic measure for a lot of people that aren't me. It'd be super selfish of me to leave. Even though I want to so bad. But the crazy thing is, it's not getting any better. Like, house prices here are insane. A lot of these larger companies like BlackRock, Vanguard, Airbnb, Die, like they're just buying up residential homes, like single family homes. Like, oh, you got a 2-bedroom house over here in the middle of the hood. They buy it up, and they pay way more than what the house is worth, and then they rent it out, or they demolish it and build another one or whatever. And what's happening is the price of homes has skyrocketed way past the cost of living. So even if you're making a decent income, let's say you have two incomes in your house, your wife works, you work, you hustle, you work hard, you have 6 YouTube channels, 2 businesses, 3 side hustles, and you still couldn't even consider ever buying a home, because the home that you feel like would keep your family safe is going to, in that certain area, is going to cost like $2 million. And I'm not talking like Hollywood Hills. I'm talking like not the ghetto, just a place next to a school with a grocery store nearby and reasonable amenities.
In a nice little middle-class neighborhood.
Like a middle-class neighborhood, and you're talking about almost $2 million.
Yeah.
It's and if you want to go live in the hood, like the ghetto where they're still rocking gang colors and like signing you on the street like they're deaf, those places are still they're almost $1 million. They're in the $600,000 to $800,000 range. Fixer-uppers, a house with no electricity, no hookups, termites, it has wildfire damage, $250,000. And you're like, this is not a reasonable place to live. No. So when a lot of these houses that you're renting, you're actually renting from these companies that they're not even from this country. Like, they're foreign companies that are just buying up houses. So on top of that, on top of industries leaving, on top of Hollywood abandoning Hollywood, California is quickly becoming a place that has great weather, but a disastrous economy, a disastrous government, horrible policies, and it's just like the entire state is slowly becoming, just a ghetto. It used to be little pockets of red and blue and little pockets of purple, and now everything is just slowly becoming a brainwashed blue ghetto.
And I want to throw this to Tom because, we talk about Hollywood being the master of self-inflicted wounds, where they're just so, it's the people who live and work in that area are just so dumb that they don't see the forest for the trees most of the time. And in this article, they actually point out that all the SAG-AFTRA strikes really, really hurt the industry. And in fact, I didn't know this, but the video game actors are still on strike. That's still ongoing. But the interesting thing here is like a lot of these people who are complaining about there not being enough, production in Hollywood were the ones that drove them away by increasing the price of what, their labor is and forcing those productions to go places that are cheaper to make it. And so now they're sitting there like, I don't know what happened, but we all know what happened. The strikes happened. So is there still fallout from this short-sightedness that the actors and the directors in Hollywood did?
I mean, they know there's a problem. Will they fix it? I don't know, because like you said, it seems like they're their own worst enemy when it comes to doing anything there. I mean, you guys have pretty much nailed everything there is to say about why this is the way it is, because, when you have a place where basically you make hundreds of movies a year where they're, multi-million-dollar productions, bringing in lots of money and revenue from taxes and jobs and other things like that, start moving out. And when majority of your films and television are now shot in Georgia or Canada or elsewhere, no wonder there's no money in the state anymore. And the reason why everything is so expensive is because you have a bunch of rich people living there, and a lot of them aren't staying there anymore, because what's the point? I don't work here anymore, so why should I live here? Yeah, it's real nice to have a house up in the Beverly Hills, I'm sure, but or the Hollywood Hills, or up in Beverly Hills or wherever, but what good does it do you when you can't stay there half the year, or more than half the year, when you're working in Georgia or Canada or all over the place?
Or Las Vegas.
Or even Vegas. Yeah, Vegas has shot a lot of movies in Vegas the last decade
Vegas.
or so. And that's just it. Production, the whole word of the whole name of the game when it comes to production is doing it cheaper than everybody else, right? Trying to find the way of doing something cheaper than everybody else, while still getting as much as you can out of the product. And when you can't make a movie in Hollywood anymore for what it used to cost, they're going to go elsewhere. And are they going to learn from their own mistakes? Fuck no. They never have. We've seen, these are the most idiotic folks in the world. These people just lost the election for the Democrats, right? Like, I mean, literally, like, if you want to blame anybody for this, it mainly has to do with the celebrities and the way they reacted between COVID and Trump and everything else. And how many people out there on a daily basis, every time a celebrity opens their mouth, they're just like, shut up, we don't want to hear it anymore.
Remember that? Down with democracy.
Yeah, everything they've done has been nothing but one bad move after another, whether it was the Imagine video or the Avengers Down with Democracy video, whether it's every time De Niro steps up there and gives one of his shaky speeches about how Trump is going to end democracy. All you're doing is turning your audience off. And we've gotten to the point, are there some people who do give a crap and they're on this cancel culture thing? Oh, sure. But Andre was recently talking about this in a video. There's like this 80-20 thing. I don't remember exactly what it's called, where it's like 80% of the population agree on something, but 20% of the population get their way because they're loud and obnoxious. Yep. Well, and I would argue it's even less than that, right? Yeah. And majority of them are living in California.
It's more like 2%. It's less.
It's more like 2 or less. And then the rest are in New York, right? And
I live in one of the few Republican strongholds. And 4 years ago, there were like Trump signs everywhere, people selling merch. And slowly over time, it's gotten to the point where even in my little Republican stronghold, those places are just being removed. Like those people are they're leaving.
Speaking of New York and LA, I want to throw this to Odin real quick. So Odin, when comparing Hollywood to Detroit, they talk about how basically like Detroit collapsed after the infrastructure for all the manufacturing left. And in this article, one of the interesting paragraphs to me was when they were talking about how the infrastructure is so ingrained in Hollywood that they're never going to lose it. And what they're talking about is, the people who own the studios live there, the talent agencies live there. It's like there's no reason for these people who work in the business end of Hollywood to ever migrate elsewhere. And it's not until that happens when they're like, that's when things will get really bad, because that means that like the infrastructure for doing this stuff is no longer based in LA, and therefore the industry is completely gone. But I think that in this day and age, especially with the advent of AI and all this other stuff, eventually, and if things get so expensive that it just doesn't make sense for these rich people to live there anymore, you'll see a total collapse of the entertainment industry in Los Angeles. What's your take on that?
No, I mean, I think that you have to really look at all these films that continue to come out, that even the ones that are better received, right? Obviously Thunderbolts just came out this weekend, and it's being called the best film in the last few years and a return to form and all these things that I just don't buy, especially having seen the film myself. But it is another reminder, right? Because I'm actually like putting together and completing the, a chart that I have going all the way back to the very first MCU film back in 2008, and comparing opening weekends and comparing it to and adjusting it for inflation. And basically right now, like, this current film is set to be the second worst opening weekend in the history of the MCU, losing, or rather beating, only the Marvels from 2023. So even though it's being better received, and I still think personally long term there's probably going to be a bit more staying power for the film in general, it does show you this sign, right, that all of the films that they have had come out right this year, and people have maybe said, oh well, think about how Guardians did pretty okay, and Deadpool Wolverine did pretty okay, but Captain America, which is a huge property for them, bombed. Thunderbolts, which was supposed to be kind of like this fun, in a way, Guardians of the Galaxy, in a way, Suicide Squad type team up movie, not looking like people are really trusting MCU at this point. And so what's that mean for things like the Fantastic Four? What does that mean for even the upcoming Avengers film, right? Bring Robert Downey Jr. back. Now, I think nostalgia and member berries is going to help that one more so than anything else. But Fantastic Four is a big one for them. If that one does not win for them, what does that mean? So even if the infrastructure is still there for them, kind of getting back to that main point, I think that you just have to really look at what the data is showing us. And right now, the audience is just overall, like, if you just look at most movies and how they're doing, most of these movies are losing money to some degree. Only a few of them are actually able to make money back. And one example, especially of a more, I guess, mid-tier budget, I guess the modern 2025 mid-tier budget, a film like Sinners, which cost around $90 to $100 million. Again, that's mid-tier, I guess, today. That one only did well because it's apparently a very good film, at least most people think it is, and it has fantastic word of mouth that's unheard of. It dropped 5% from its second weekend. That's unheard of. There's no other film that I can think of in the last few years that was able to do that. And so that is the kind of market that they're dealing with. And so even though they might have those structures still there, they still have a massive problem on their hands. And that is that they have lost the audience to a massive degree, because of multiple things, right? The convenience of streaming, the convenience of just staying at home. I can't tell you how many times I'm like, you know what? I'd rather just wait for things to be available online than to actually go out and see this brand new movie, because I just don't even want to really even deal with it anymore. And this is someone from, I love theaters. I love going to the movies. It's been a part of my life, especially since high school, when it really became a huge part of my life. I was there every weekend in high school, seeing films multiple times, even if it wasn't a good movie. They don't have that anymore, though, right? COVID broke that routine, and the content they're putting out there just sucks and is being done as well or better by these streaming services.
Yeah, but there has been movies that come out that have made a lot of money. I mean, look at, like,
but they're few and far between.
Mario Bros. I mean, look at like a Minecraft movie. Like, that Drew just said right here, $820 million so far and $150 million budget. Is that a unicorn? Is that just an anomaly?
It's kind of more of a unicorn now, because the problem is they've killed so many revenue streams. There is no real way of making any of this money back, right? Like, because here's the thing, like a movie like The Accountant 2, the only reason that's going to be somewhat profitable in some ways just because it's an Amazon film, but that's because that's the closest to what like DVD used to do for movies. Like a movie that cost $15-20 million to make, $30 million to make in the early aughts or 90s, yeah, I'd go to the theaters, make $40 million. Is that profitable? No. But what that movie would then turn around and do is sell $150 to $300 million worth of discs, right? Like, that's the big difference. And that's where the big paydays would come in on top of all this, the cable showings, which HBO or Showtime would give you a fat check. And then you'd get, your TBS and TNT cable showings, USA, whatever, after your network premiere, which was a nice big fat check as well. So, I mean, and then for years you could let a film play in syndication. Like, the average lifespan of a film used to be 5 years. They've cut it down to less than 5 weeks in some cases. Now, look at a movie like Nosferatu. Look at Sinners. Sinners is a great example. That movie got word of mouth going around. People went to see it. Nosferatu had the same thing going for it. As soon as it started picking up momentum, dumbass Universal pulls it from theaters and throws it up on video on demand. Why? Because that's the closest they have now.
They put it on
to
Peacock
selling
for
DVDs.
free.
Eventually, yes, but for about a few days of a window or a few weeks, it was only on video on demand. Now, why are they doing that? They're doing that to try to make up the revenue stream they lost from DVD and Blu-ray. That's what they're trying to do, because the difference between a ticket at a movie theater compared to what they're getting on video on demand is they only get maybe 50% of the ticket at the theater if they're lucky. Video on demand, they're probably only paying Vudu or Apple or Amazon what, $2-3 a download or whatever every time somebody buys that. The other bulk of that money is going right back into the studio's pocket. That's the money they used to make on DVD and Blu-ray, gone now.
And that goes towards like Hollywood's self-inflicted wounds. But I want to give this to Mr. H real quick, because a big part of this article, Mr. H, is that it's blaming Trump for the exodus of production. And they basically said, like, oh, when Trump came into office, he set up his Hollywood ambassadors that basically it's the Holy Trinity. It's John Voight, Mel Gibson, and Sylvester Stallone. And they were going to be his eyes and ears in the entertainment industry and report back to him about what's happening so that he could, like, help, know what to focus on in order to help the entertainment industry, like, come back stronger. But they're like, so far, like, we haven't heard anything from him. He hasn't been doing anything for us yet. He's making the economy worse. Overall, like, Trump's just making this worse. What do you think about that? Do you think that this is Trump's fault that, there's a steady exodus of production from LA, or should they be maybe a little bit more introspective?
I think they need to be a lot more introspective. In looking at it, I think you don't have a political point to blame. You don't have you couldn't blame either party, specifically Trump. Trump is the only one that's, as the Hollywood acknowledged at the beginning, that was actually talking about what they needed to do or manage in California specifically, but overall in entertainment. And with John Vaught out there trying to avoid however you want to say his name, kind of talking about this endlessly, I would think that despite his obvious leanings politically, he just wants what's best for the area, and perhaps to bring everything back to some point of rationality. I don't think you can actively point at any of these things being any politician's fault, except for the politicians that actually reside in California. Their promotion production programs that they've had in the form of tax credits for a while have come with a lot of strings, and I think that that's really the only way to tie it to it politically. I'm not sure if anybody else has mentioned that, but Gavin Newsom's actually probably done more harm to the film industry in California than any other governor before him. If you have to force DEI in order to qualify for these film credits, you've got significant issues. So where you point your finger, is really just at the politics within the state of California. Just like with every other problem California has, it's a California problem because they allowed it, they created it, and they kept voting for it. I don't know if that's the answer you were looking for, but that's really where all this is.
Well, Mr. H, you are very insightful, as always. I appreciate your answer.
Oh,
Dutch Butters, what about you? Do you think that we should just let Hollywood destroy itself and then build it back up, or should we
burn?
Just
let it burn. Who cares? Let it burn. Let's watch the chaos from the other side of the border over here, because all this stuff's getting outsourced anyway, right? I mean, they're building studios here in Las Vegas. They're building studios in other parts of the country. I'm just like, in the whole thing of these people are so dumb. They've made their bed. Let them sleep in it. That's just how I feel about it. They keep putting these dumb shits in office for the politician side, and they keep on supporting all these people, and then they cry when things don't work out for them. So, well, I don't have any sympathy for them at all.
Dutch Butters, my question to you would be this: wouldn't the state of Nevada and the state of Georgia both be, luring Hollywood away with cheaper prices and cheaper support, considering the prices in LA for doing anything, whether it be catering or, offering, the best electrics that work on films and television sets, et cetera? I mean, wouldn't that be, kind of the way that Hollywood is going to have to go, creating Detroit and LA anyway?
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
Mr. H, you're talking about capitalism, which is something that California just does not believe in.
True. That's
In
true.
fact, I read an article recently about how there was like this big boom in like production facilities, especially for like stuff like the volume and stuff like that. And now that Hollywood is kind of like pulling back on production and stuff like that because of the strikes and the economy and things of that nature, all these new production facilities are basically sitting empty and losing money, and they're probably going to be closing down fairly soon. So again, it's just like a lot of self-inflicted wounds, and it's all because the people who run California are dumb. And I say that as somebody who lived there. So it's one of the
extremely
reasons why I left.
so.
Yeah. It's not dumb, guys. Super chats. We got one from Mark Daly for $5. Detroit had its problems, but it was only a figurative shithole, not a literal one like San Francisco. Yes, San Francisco literally is a shithole.
Literally.
And then Mark comes in at $10. Yeah, they don't shit in the box like Vader does, or I should say Dutch Butters. Sorry for dead naming you. Okay. Mark Daly for $10. Florida has no income tax, and right now they're fighting over whether to cut the sales tax or the property tax, and we have surpluses, not the deficits like Cali. Ask your leftist politicals why that is. We know why that is. It's because Florida is a much better run state than California is. California is really, really shockingly mismanaged, and it has been for decades.
Shockingly, right.
Yeah, it's bad. And hopefully we can get Brian and Shane to move out to Vegas so we can all hang out.
That'd be great.
Yeah, it would be great. But now I want to talk a little bit about big box office bombs. And Odin's favorite Hollywood rag has been talking about the most successful movies of 2024. And then they ended their series with the worst, most money-losing movies of 2024. And that is, of course, Deadline, which Odin just 100% supports, I know. But what was interesting about this to me is, so like they list the 4 major flops of 2024, and it was Kraven the Hunter, Megaopolis, or Megaflopolis as people call it, Borderlands, but the big ones belong to Warner Brothers, which was basically Furiosa and Joker
Shenanigans.
2. Yeah,
Shenanigans.
But they've also had the biggest hits of the year too, for the most part.
I'm not saying they haven't, but combined, Furiosa and Joker 2 lost the studio over $250 million, which I thought was interesting, especially because in their estimations for how this stuff works. So you have the box office, but then they show you like the theatrical total, which is like the millions of dollars that the studios actually pocketed. And what was interesting to me is like you can actually kind of see like what studios bring home compared to like what they report as revenue. So worldwide, Furiosa brought in $174 million, but the theatrical take home for Warner Brothers was actually just like $76 million, according to Deadline math. Now this might be all over the place depending on it, but the thing I want to talk about in regards to this article is really more about the economics of filmmaking right now, because movies cost so much to make and so much to market that we're at a point now where I feel like the return on investment just isn't there. And so Odin, because this is your favorite news site, I want to throw it to you first. What's your take on these top 4 biggest box office bombs of 2024? And do you think that it's accurate?
Well, I mean, they are some of the biggest box office bombs of last year, but they ignore a lot of things. The thing that to me kind of shows you why you cannot trust Deadline is last year, or it was 2 years ago maybe, whenever the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film came out. So Tom might know what I'm talking about here, especially since he's a massive TMNT fan. What they decided to do was, in their biggest grossing films of the year, was only for that movie, they decided to include within the revenues toy sales, merchandising. And that's the only way that the film actually got onto their chart of the most profitable films of the year. And it's like, wait a minute. So you're going to go ahead and credit the movie for merchandising sales for a property that has always sold really well, even without the film. Yeah, go ahead and add something.
I was going to say, note that not only that, they had already done $1 billion in merchandising sales for the year prior to Mutant Mayhem coming out. And it's a big question of whether or not Mutant Mayhem actually really made any money. It's funny you had brought that up, Odin, because just yesterday I took a picture at Walmart of a bunch of Mutant Mayhem figures on clearance.
Because most people didn't.
The OG turtle stuff. Yeah, because all the $1 billion of sales was all the old figures, the NECA figures, the repros of the old original Ninja Turtles and stuff like that. It wasn't any of this Mutant Mayhem crap, I don't think.
And the other thing that Deadline does, good old Tony at Deadline likes to do, is he also likes to include streaming revenue, which would also then include money that companies like Disney pay to themselves to have the film that they own shown on their own platform. But that is counted as a revenue of some kind. Again, putting money in one pocket to be put into another. So you should not trust anything that Tony at Deadline has to say. The only good thing, I'm going to give Tony some credit here. The only thing that I do like that he includes is projected marketing cost, because he normally is able to point out, oh yeah, the marketing was actually a lot higher than what the standard marketing typically would be. And it gives you kind of a bit of ammo to use against people who say, oh, the film made money or the film wasn't a flop or whatever it might be, because you could say, oh, even your buddy Tony at Deadline says, yeah, no, they spent actually quite a bit of money on the marketing for that film. But yeah, I mean, so I would say that, again, all the films that he's mentioned, though, are, again, when it comes to flops, that's pretty easy because, yeah, those are easy things to point out there, right? Joker 2, obviously, one of the biggest flops of the year. No doubt about that. But then he's also not going to be including other films that I think probably deserve to be talked about as well. For instance, there's one that I just really, and again, I know that this is a part of one of the major streamers, and so, okay, they pay for the rights to it. How much do they really end up losing? But people forgot how much Argyle did not make at the box office and how much they spent to actually get the rights to that movie. Like, that was actually, according to my charting, one of the biggest losers of the year because it didn't even make $100 million at the box office. And then they spent a crap ton of money to actually get it. So again, the fact that movies like that are not going to be on their list because they don't really include things like that. They don't really find those to be, I guess, quote, valid or of some kind. So that bothers me a little bit. And then also too, they will look over other things. Like they'll mention Craven, but then they, didn't mention, I don't know if Madam Web was on there, but Madam Web, lost $100 million. Funny enough, was not the biggest box office loser though of last year. But also even The Fall Guy actually lost money too, right? Just on paper, based off of how much was spent on the movie and how much the movie actually ended up making. So it's interesting, the ones that they pick and choose that make it onto their list, and then the ones that don't make it onto the list because it doesn't fit their narrative of some kind. Because also another one of those movies from, I think this was Apple's deal, Fly Me to the Moon, did not make anything at the box office either. And again, just based off of budgets, reporting, and things like that. So I don't trust anything that Tony does, except for marketing, maybe, because at least there's at least something that typically isn't talked about.
Odin, there was a caveat to this article, I don't know if you noticed, which was these were, quote unquote, fanboy losses.
That's
like
right.
These were the movies made for fanboys that were the biggest losses. And it's interesting because like they do talk about in the article that Kraven the Hunter, their estimates basically factored in like $40 million in global home entertainment and $50 million in TV and streaming revenues. So they are kind of combining those, I think. But they did mention Madam Web as well in terms of like Sony's decision to stop making these types of movies because like they're just, not only are they bad, but they're like consistent losers. And they also refer to the strikes as something that they weren't able to factor into their revenue projections, because they're like, well, even if it underperforms, like we can still kind of count on recapping this much money. But then the strikes necessitating reshoots and pushing back the theatrical windows and stuff like that threw everything for a loop, apparently. But Tom, you made a good point at the start of this segment where we were talking about, okay, Joker 2 and Furiosa lost Warner Brothers upwards of $264 million, but Warner also had some hits. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how Warner's was able to kind of counterbalance the losses here?
Well, I mean, they had a pretty good since COVID. They're one of the few studios that has had a lot more hits than misses. Now, don't get me wrong; they've had some big flops, like Furiosa and Joker was a big bad flop on their plate. But comparatively to some of the other studios, even though I think Disney was the one who reportedly had the most revenue at the box office last year, I would argue that Warner Brothers was the most profitable between some of the stuff that they had. But the problem is with this is, and I don't know if Mikey's in the chat, but he'd probably be able to add a little bit more to this. There was something recently I was reading about how Hollywood is still one of the few industries where a movie can have two completely different revenue streams and how it's taxed and how it's reported. right? So like it's almost worth more to a studio to have, and I know this is getting into like producer territory, Mel Brooks producer, but it's almost like true that in some cases it's almost better for a studio to have a loss at the box office because they can write it off on their taxes in certain ways, and it still end up being profitable on video on demand and other revenue streams, and they don't have to report it the same way. It's really messed up, and how this works, and it goes along with how they pay residuals and everything else going down the road. And honestly, at this point, I question anything I see from any of these people that they report on any of these movies, because one thing I've learned is they always report 2-3 times as much as they actually spend. Half of the money usually goes into some production company's pocket right up front, right? So generally half of what they even say is being spent on the film. And then even at that point, it's even fractions of that. So I'm really starting to be curious about who's getting what, and you start digging into these, and especially the streaming movies, because those are set up differently. And I'm not talking about movies that are bought by streamers and put on. I'm talking about like the ones that are made by Amazon, made by Apple, directly for their Netflix and so on, directly for their streaming services, right? See, because these movies, when they put them in theaters, especially Amazon, a lot of times they're basically just like free advertisements for Amazon Prime. It's not really losing them anything at the end of the day, the way they're structured tax-wise, I guess is my understanding for this. So this is why when you have a movie like Working Man that didn't do amazing at the box office, but it did well enough to where that's going to generate more than enough on PVOD, which it has been, I think, #1 for the past couple weeks. And then it'll be free on Amazon here in like a week or two, probably, I think it is. So at that point, it's already made some money for Amazon, and whatever people are watching it on Amazon Prime, however they figure that into their revenue stream and how that works out. We don't know all those yet. We don't know all the ins and outs exactly. I mean, Odin may know a little bit more than I do personally right now, but and I know, Culture's followed it too, but like I'm curious where they figure and factor in all this business, because that's one thing I keep hearing more and more about is like, okay, so if they say a movie costs $100 million to make, 50 million of that goes right into the production company's pocket, whether it's Legendary or, insert your production company here. And it's like just the cost of doing business with them, right? It's really weird unless they're putting up part of the budget, which is like another thing. So it's like, at the end of the day, I don't understand a lot of the movie math and the fugazi that goes on there. This is why I compare them to the underwear gnomes all the time, because it's like, where do you actually figure in that you're making profit here? Because like Odin said, and the only way I can see that they're still staying afloat is how they report these things and how the taxes are figured out. And like I said, I don't know if Mikey wants to chime in on that at all in the chat. He's still listening, but yeah.
You know who I would like to chime in is Mr. H, because over at That Park Place, which is one of the best movie and TV resources on the internet, run by our good friend Dubdy Dubs. They have this premium subscriber article, so you can't read the whole thing unless you're a VIP member of That Park Place, but that's okay. Disney touts the success of Deadpool and Wolverine, but most of the film's profits were consumed by Snow White's failure. And I know, Mr. H, that your good friend Culture Casino works with That Park Place, and so he might have access to that VIP article and know more details. But it is kind of interesting because we're talking about movie math, where basically like Deadpool and Wolverine pulled in like, I think 1.2 billion or 1.5 billion. You guys probably know more than me. And then Snow White comes along and it's like, oh, all the profits from that $1 billion movie are now gone. So why don't you tell us a little bit about like the movie math here, and does it make sense for studios to keep pumping hundreds of millions of dollars into films that their losses basically just eat up?
Well, like you said, I mean, it always comes down to virtue signaling versus money, and for a long time, because of the profits, the revenue specifically from the theme parks, Disney's been able to largely ignore their theatrical earnings and put out films that are not really what the audience wants, based on the political beliefs that they have, that is likened to the revolutionary period in Cuba. or perhaps the Cultural Revolutionary period in China. A lot of the politics
China
being inserted into these other ways to influence the populace through cultural shifts have been probably the biggest problem for Disney, is just falling in line with politics rather than falling in line with the customers. In the article that you're referring to, which is a VIP article, most of the profits were eaten up by two films already this year. As Odin has covered before, not only did Snow White have a fumble right out the gate, but Brave New World, or Toilet Wand, or Captain Anti-America, WEF Adventure, those films, those two films, largely led to the destruction of profitability, or the benefits of the profitability of Deadpool and Wolverine. Estimated by Valiant Renegade, and I don't know I don't remember or recall what Odin suggested, but you're $600 million to $700 million in the hole right now. So that the profitability of Deadpool and Wolverine just basically got wiped out. The impressive $400 million profit on Deadpool and Wolverine was a fascinating thing to learn. And it actually confirmed, and this is going to be kind of fun to watch Odin's spreadsheet change, that the 3 times number for the estimated how does this thing make a profit is actually right in line. A $400 million profit. It kind of confirmed what the budget would be on this $1.3 billion, gross profit or performance of this Deadpool and Wolverine film. But you look at, finishing between $300 and $400 million globally for Rachel Zegler, that would have been, not even close to break even based on the budget and the advertising. With its performance now just barely over 200 million, if I'm not mistaken, Odin, is that correct?
It's been so long since I've even looked at it because it dropped out the chart so quickly at 200 million.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I think. I think it didn't earn much more than that, and it hasn't. It's still in theaters now, and I think even Captain America or Captain Anti-America actually outperformed it this weekend.
I want to throw this to Dutch Butters because Dutch, do you think Hollywood ever learns from its mistakes? Like, do they look at these box office bombs or like, let's figure out why this didn't work and then like not do it again?
No. I have no idea, dude. Come on. Let me talk to my Hollywood executive friends, and I'll get back to you on
Call
that
up your
question,
attorney,
okay?
bro.
Fucking donkey. Come on, man.
Call up Goldstein.
Do you have a box to go shit in, Dutch?
Yeah, that's where I'm going to go.
What's your chart say, Dutch?
Yeah. I really would rather see what Odin's chart says, because I have a feeling not only will he bear out what's said in the article over on That Park Place, but I would imagine that you may even have it in a greater deficit at this point in time, and I don't think Thunderbolts is going to help. What do you think?
Well, Brian, before Odin gets a chance to respond there, Brian, hey. Warner Brothers has a lot riding on the Superman movie that's coming up, and looking at the losses of Furiosa and Joker 2, it seems like there's a lot riding on this James Gunn Superman film. What's your take on it if Superman underperforms?
Oh, it's bad for Warner Brothers. They put a lot of eggs in their DC Studios basket. It's not just Superman, like Supergirl is in the middle of filming right now. A lot of projects from Gunn and Safran are like working. Like there's money been allocated. They've been spending money, signing contracts. I think that if Superman fails, that might be the end of the new DCU experiment. I don't know. I gotta say though, like Marvel was given some mulligans. Like in Phase 1 and Phase 2, Iron Man was good, but there were plenty of Marvel movies that were very poor. They were poorly received. They didn't make a lot of money, but they kept chugging along because the good movies outweighed the bad movies, and the overall story is what people were going to the theater for. So Warner Brothers has historically always been chasing that Marvel dream, but trying to rush through it and then getting cold feet the second a movie does poorly. And not even poorly, like it doesn't do $1 billion. So if Superman is like not a runaway hit and it just sort of hits its budget or whatever, I hope that Warner Brothers, at the very least continues the project and sees where the fan reaction is versus just doing what they've done in the past and just pulling the plug completely.
I think Superman's going to do okay. I mean, it's one of the few movies coming out that I actually am intrigued enough about to go buy a ticket and watch. I think I feel the same way about Fantastic Four, but I think it is a lot because I just haven't watched a lot of movies in the last year. So in fact, I think the last movie I was actually excited about to go watch at the theater was Furiosa. And I really enjoyed that movie. I don't know why it was such a huge flop, but it was good. It was a good movie, man. I had a good time with it. And, but I guess, I'm in the minority there. I guess nobody wants to go watch a Mad Max movie without Mad Max in it. Right, Tom? So,
right.
I get it, but it was still a good movie. I had a good time with it. So,
well, do you guys know what people should be watching are apparently Oscar submissions, because the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences recently dropped a new rule that in order for your vote to count for the Oscars, you actually have to watch all the movies in the category in which you are voting. And it turns out that they had to pass this rule because apparently Oscar voters don't actually watch the movies that they're voting on.
How do you enforce something like this?
Well, they've got some digital chicanery going on here where basically they have to log into an app and they have to watch it on the app. So it tracks their, watch history, and there's like 2-step verification and all this crazy stuff. But basically Academy members have been kind of, rallying for this rule to be passed for quite some time now. But apparently it was just a recommendation by the Academy up to now where it's like, hey, maybe you should watch all the stuff that you're voting for, And what's interesting about this article is like we all know that the Oscars has a long history of like the Academy basically voting for like either the stuff that they make, the actual like voters make, or that their friends make, or that they have some type of financial interest in. So it's not actually based around the quality of the movie that is up for the awards. It's actually based on like who has the most connections to that movie that could benefit from it winning. And they're calling this the Brutalist rule because apparently the Brutalist, which was an A24 film, got 10 nominations and 3 wins this past season. Basically, nobody watched this. They just hit play and like let it play in the background as they were doing other stuff, and they just voted for it because they had like some type of vested interest in it winning. So the Academy is actually trying to do things that make the voters for the categories actually knowledgeable about what they're voting for, but the old Hollywood connections are still there. It's like, am I not going to vote for my own movie if there's a better movie out there? It's like, no. It's like these people have like, biases. So I want to throw this to Odin because Odin actually runs a very legitimate award ceremony called the Raven Awards. It's very democratic. But Odin, like, how is it that the Academy can just let these shenanigans go on for as long as they did?
Well, because it's a bunch of old people who don't quite understand the way the world works all the time. But honestly, like the first thing that came to my head is, well, now they've basically admitted that every single Oscars winner for the last probably 10 years, if not more, is now completely illegitimate. Every single winner. Because they've just now admitted, oh yeah, people have been voting for films they haven't watched.
Not just the winner, but the nominees as well.
Yes.
No wonder Parasite beat Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. Right? And so this, I think, should make illegitimate every single... But by making this now a rule, they are tacitly admitting that this was a problem, and therefore it should call into question every single other film that has ever won or been nominated at the Oscars going forward. Now, I will say... because you mentioned I have a legitimate show. I mean, I love my Raven Awards, but let's be honest, a lot of people vote and rate in my awards without having watched everything and seen all of the nominations either. But then again, we don't pretend like that is not the case. We don't pretend and have this, veneer of like, oh, this is the respect and the dignity and everything. Whereas the Oscars have. And that's, I think, why, honestly, if anyone does still take the Oscars seriously, I gave up on them years ago. But if anyone is still like, oh, yes, we must watch the Oscars, support that, this should be the thing that says, yeah, you're never watching them again. Like, because they have just admitted to you that, again, every single thing that they've put forward the last several years, especially, because there used to be a time when you could probably admit and probably count on most of the people voting were probably watching the stuff that was there, right? Because it was much more of a part of it. But
when
now
you used to have to go to screenings and stuff.
Exactly, you had to be physically there, so there was a way of marking it, right? But now in the digital age, ever since digital screeners or even physical screeners being sent out became a thing, I do think that is probably, if we could find when that time is, every film from that point, even if it's a good movie, even if it's one that we really like, we should say, yeah, from that point onward, you have to say a little asterisk there because we could not confirm that everyone actually was watching these movies.
Well, Dutch Butters, I would argue that it wasn't until Harvey Weinstein and Miramax got into the Oscar game that things started going wrong because, they threw a lot of money in. They were bribing people. They were blackmailing people. They were, trying to do their best to kind of, get in the front of the stage in terms of the industry. And we all know that the Oscars is the biggest masturbatory event of the season for the entertainment industry. So do you think that, this is just going to speed along the Oscars' steady decline and nobody's going to care?
I think you're right. I mean, honestly, man, who gives a crap about the Oscars? I don't think any of you guys on the panel do. We all know it's just a big self-masturbation society get together party anyway. I mean, it's who cares? I mean, this rule's like 25 years too late. I mean, even when we do our own silly reward shows and stuff, there's still popularity contests. I mean, it's just the nature of an award show. So you're gonna vote for what you like, whether you've watched it or consumed it or not. It's just how it is. The Oscars are irrelevant, at least to me, and they have been for decades now. So, I mean, I don't see what them doing this, how this is going to change anything. It's just going to put them up for more ridicule and for people to make more fun of them like we're doing right now. It's silly. It's just a silly thing.
Well, Brian, from a technology perspective, so the Academy is in a difficult position here because they need to figure out some way in which to actually confirm that people watch these movies as opposed to just having them play while at home on their TV while they're out, running around doing errands and stuff like that.
Right.
So what do you think the Academy should be doing to try to actually verify that people are watching the various nominations?
Nielsen. They're already doing it. So my household's the Nielsen family. We have the little Nielsen account thing. We log in. I'm not sure what you're laughing at. Nielsen's a cool thing. It's what tracks.
I didn't even know it was still a thing, Brian. That's what I'm laughing at.
Yeah.
The way you said, we're a Nielsen family.
We're a Nielsen family.
Well, yeah, but I think the problem with it,
it's not a rare
thing. Still doesn't really know if you're actually watching it. That's I think the bigger question.
But here. It does. So what happens is you can't just auto watch something over and over again. There is a point where it will ask you periodically, 20, 30 minutes throughout things, how's it going? What's your enjoyment levels like? And you don't have to always turn on the Nielsen stuff, but if they want to make sure they're watching it, just use that same technology that Nielsen's already using.
So kind of like how Netflix brings up, are you still watching when it's in between?
Kind of, but they got to do it more frequently, and I think they should actually ask a question that has something to do with the movie, perhaps.
Questions. Yes.
Yeah.
Relevant. Yeah. Hey, what did Tom do at the grocery store or whatever? Yeah, I'm cool with that, but the technology exists, so just tweak it for your own benefit.
Or I would say, if you're going to have voters, one recommendation would be also have official voting watch parties at a theater, right? So you say, all right, if you want to vote, you have to see X showings at X theaters, right? Have approved showings, whatever it might be, because that's really, I think, the only way you can really know with any sense of clarity.
I think this is just making a big thing out of nothing. I mean, they've been doing this for years and years and years and years, and all of a sudden now it's become a thing.
Well, they used to have their assistants watch them when they would get screenered videotapes.
They're having their assistants fill out their ballots.
Well, it was an assistant that got it screwed up for the first place because they used to do DVD screeners. But I can't remember whose assistant it was, but somebody allowed them to lend out all these movies. So there was this one year where like every single nominated Oscar film ended up online in a pristine copy. Do you know the year I'm talking about, Odin, right? I can't remember whose assistant it was, but somebody screwed up big time and lent them to the wrong person, and it got all over the internet, and it was a big deal. So this is when they started doing the digital only thing after that. But yeah, but I agree with Odin. Like the only ways you can do it is make people actually physically go to these screenings, or do like what Brian is kind of saying and add in like every 15, 20 minutes, like a little, are you still watching button thing? And then maybe after an hour or so, ask them a question that's pertaining to the movie they're watching, just to prove that they watch it. And if they don't get like 3 out of 5 of those questions right, they don't get to vote. That's what I would say. Because, I mean, at this point, to us, the Oscars don't mean diddly squat.
Nothing.
But they mean a lot in Hollywood, right? Because this is like the equivalent if you were to win a big award in whatever it is you do in your industry. You have to keep that in mind. That makes you worth that much more now in your industry. And so for somebody to win an Oscar for anything in Hollywood, look at Bong Joon-ho, or whatever the hell his name is. Perfect example. Beat Quentin Tarantino that year for what was arguably one of his best films, and he should have won, with Parasite. And so they give him, what, $300 million to waste on Mickey 17?
Yeah.
That Oscar got him that money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even just getting nominated. But Tom, I want to ask you real quick. Like, there's always been this debate about how like the People's Choice Awards is a far more accurate gauge of like the quality of a movie than the Oscars.
Technically,
is. Yeah. So like how do you look at these different award shows and be like, okay, why does the Oscars count so much more than something a little bit more about the audience, like the People's Choice Awards?
It does in the industry because these people work in the industry, especially when it comes to certain technical awards and stuff. It does matter because these people know the industry, right? And you have to be a specific member of a lot of those guilds or whatnot to even vote on like special effects and other things like that. But when it comes to the main actors and the movies and the directors, it's all about popularity. Like that's kind of what, you know, you guys have been getting at. And it's true. It doesn't, why did Forrest Gump win? Right? I mean, that was one of the most notorious movies in history. Was like, yeah, it's a good movie, but how in the world is it better than Shawshank Redemption or Pulp Fiction?
Yeah.
It's just, that's a perfect example of how this stuff works. It's all about popularity contests. It's about, am I going to vote the right way? Why did Anora win this year? Because at the last minute, the movie everybody was going to vote for, the lead actress screwed it all up, or actor, let's be real, screwed it all up. Otherwise, we'd have had our first trans woman win Best Actress, and that movie would have been the one that win all the Oscars. But they had to go with their second choice, which was Anora.
She came out as like a Bruce Jenner trans, right? Is that what happened? Something like that.
Well, worse than that.
Guys, I want to make a suggestion that going forward, we just call trans what it is, which is basically men pretending to be women.
Yeah.
So instead of trans, like, let's just use that phrase.
Yeah, LARPing as women. Yeah.
But Mr. H, you know, speaking of what Tom was just talking about, I think what happens oftentimes with these judges in the Academy is that they won't watch a movie, but they'll want to make a political statement with their vote. And so like they'll oftentimes vote for something that they didn't bother watching just because it has the right politics behind it. And, you know, talking about, you know, that man pretending to be a woman who got nominated, I think that was one of the big reasons why, you know, he got the votes for Best Actress, and why that movie in general got nominated to begin with is because the politics were there. Mm-hmm. Is there a way for the Academy to kind of like curtail that type of thing?
The problem is that forever they have actually encouraged that. Mm-hmm. You know, going back to having Marlon Brando send up some fake Indian lady to accept an award. I mean, you've had many political moments like that in history, but at least when it comes to the awards. But if you take a look at what has been so permitted in those awards, it's been nothing but political. I would suggest that out of the last 10 years, 6 of the selections were made for political purposes. We've talked about obviously the Parasite film. Tom made great and excellent points when we get to that, but that was only made so that they could do a first and something that they wouldn't be allowed to do normally, or wouldn't have been allowed to do. They put a non-American film, a non-English film, in the primary category of best film, and so politically it gave everybody an opportunity to vote for something that nobody had seen. And when I mean nobody had seen it, I'm not going to make the suggestion that nobody that was voting for that hadn't seen it, although it's likely, obviously, now. But it's also the problem that it wasn't a financial success. I mean, it may have been for a film, but it wasn't a blockbuster. It wasn't something that the large amount of the populace, which should play a bigger factor in these awards, just wasn't interested in, didn't pay for, didn't go see. We have an increasing number of these things happening, which we mentioned just a little while ago, the 80-20 rule, right? And the thing is you have everybody here voting for the 20%. That's the biggest problem with the Oscars. You have the people who are the least informed, the least culturally plugged in or engaged, making these decisions. So as far as how do you stop that, I don't think you do. I don't think it's possible. I wouldn't even begin to suggest that they could do it. Every one of these people feel like they're entitled to put their political vision in front of everybody else. And that's how I think that the Oscars has basically become virtually useless, and I don't think they can fix it.
I would give my right nut right now for Sashim Little Feather type crap to come out of house. Like that was quaint. In comparison to this.
And if those of you that are not familiar with this, and Polly and I talked about it at length, and even interviewed one of her sisters on Polly's channel on the Latino Slant, which you should check that interview out. But Sashim Littlefeather was a fraud. Day one, beginning, was marked up there and gave everybody a speech in the position of Marlon Brando. Like I said, the moment that was allowed to be the farce that it was for as long as it was, you were never going to get out of it, and that's been that way forever. I mean, you still are honoring people who diddle around with kids to receive awards in Hollywood all those years ago, and it's funny. Roman has been honored many times by the Academy and the people that are associated with it. So it's just it's always been political. Don't even fool yourself. There's no way to remove it.
I'm going to derail this really quick because Culture, you're killing me right now with that tweet you put out.
Which one?
With the girls with the wide eyes. Have you noticed Hollywood casting female leads with ocular terrorism?
Hyperocular terrorism?
That is funny. They all got the eyes that are like on the sides of their heads. That's wild.
Yeah.
What is that all about?
It's true. Just take a look at Disney. They love themselves some hyperocular terrorism.
Yeah, that's strange.
Or, as we like to call it, bug face. Real quick, we got Mexican Iron Man, a member for 26 months. Guys, that's a long time. Forrest Gump is greater than Pulp Fiction? LOL. XO.
That's all he's got to say about that.
All he's got to say.
That was a good movie. I
gotta pay.
Awesome.
All right, guys, real quick before we get out of here, there's just one thing I wanted to mention, which is that there's going to be a fantasy football for movies coming out real quick.
Ooh.
Yeah, let's go.
Basically, this is from Movie Pass, which I didn't know was still a thing.
It came back.
Apparently the guy who started Movie Pass, he got bought out, and they did that disastrous discount thing that basically made them go bankrupt, and then he bought it back. And now he's trying to add value to using the Movie Pass service beyond the AMC or the Regal, free ticket type deal. And his big thing is going to be a fantasy box office game or app where basically you can sign up, you can start your own studio, you can, recruit or trade directors, stars, and producers. And basically, it kind of reminds me a lot of the old like Hollywood Stock Exchange, where you could like buy and sell movies and actors and stuff like that based off of like their popularity and things of that nature. But this one is basically gamifying box office success and failure. I found it kind of interesting. I wanted to get the panel's overall opinion on this real quick. So does anybody have anything they want to say about it?
So I am a MoviePass member. I was back when it first came out, and then it just went off the rails whenever, I think his name was Mitch Lowe, took over as CEO. He was awful. He was also just a garbage human being in general too. Whenever people would bring up criticisms of the company and how the app was broken at that time, especially, he would just kind of just brush it off and ignore it completely. Ever since it's come back though, it's a lot more legitimate. They have a lot better of a pricing scheme and everything. However, I will say that when they started doing the promotion for that, it was pretty much a loser amongst the community base of MoviePass, because we kept getting bombarded with these emails. They kept saying 24 hours left, 24 hours left, and then 24 hours would pass, and then it would extend it. And so clearly they didn't have a lot of interest in it, because you could sign up like for early access to it, basically. And now the only way you can get in is, I think, through like invites. But again, interesting concept. But there's already apps, I believe, that have this, or I know there's at least another site that has something like this when it comes to box office. So it's more of a, what are you going to get out of it? If it's just for gamification, are you paying for it? Are you getting free tickets from it, or what have you? So I mean, it could be good, but I don't think the rollout's been very good so far.
So according to the article, they're going to be playing with funny money at
Yeah.
first, but the eventual goal is to have like real money be at stake. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Dutch.
It sounds like something Blaine should put in over Criticless,
I agree.
right in their aisle. I think that's what he should do. So
What about you, Tom Connors Jr.? You have anything to say about this?
I was going to say, I thought there already was something kind of like this, but it also kind of reminiscent. I know there was another one back in the day, like way back in the early internet days, where
Yeah, the
people
movie stock exchange.
well, no, there was something else where you actually made your own stuff. Like, it wasn't stuff that was based on anything that was out there. Like, you literally made your own movie. You pitched movies. People would decide whether they would vote on them. And then you actually even had like a weekend box office where people would vote on which one they wanted to see and all this stuff. And it was completely separate from the film side of things. Because here's my issue with this. Like, sports is one thing. You have the physical video to go by usually when it comes to sports. You can go by and there's no debating the numbers that go into sports because it's all mathematical anyway, right? You can look at a spreadsheet of what happened in a baseball game and you can tell everybody exactly what happened in that baseball game, right? A movie's a little different, and this is where we're dancing around things where it's like, I don't even know if I trust this, especially when you're getting actual money involved with people. Like, to play with funny money is one thing, right? Like, to just goof around and have like a, you know, like an office kind of thing like you would for football, you know, that's one thing. But to actually start getting people involved in a gambling kind of situation kind of gets dicey. Because then there's incentives for people to manipulate things and do other things. And when you're not doing something like sports where you have a physical thing you can watch and see and there's no debating what happened, right? I mean, that's one thing. But I don't know. This just seems very fugazi, and it'd be fine if there wasn't money involved. That's the thing that kind of has me kind of going, you know, tilting my head going, why is there money involved in this? This makes no sense. So yeah, I'm all for like Criticalist doing something like this just to compete with them and say, yeah, you don't need to get money involved. Right. I mean, it's just that's
just for fun.
Yeah,
that's
there is
grifting.
There is a
in a way.
group on Criticlist that is like a game where you can like basically at the beginning of the year you can like claim movies, or you can like, but that's like, it's nothing like an actual like dedicated game necessarily. Yeah, that's what Caveat Ties, Box Office Tycoon group on Criticlist has something like that.
Mr. H, do you have anything to add? I'll take that as a no. What about you, Brian?
I like the idea, the Criticalist thing. I like that. I think that us as a group, if we keep expanding Criticalist, like Blaine's doing it, but if we keep promoting it, then we'll have more power in this industry. And I think MoviePass was a horrible idea in the first place, by the way. Horrible idea that really didn't work. If you guys have not seen this, go look up, just Google MoviePass CEO. I'm sorry, YouTube search MoviePass CEO, and there's a hilarious sketch from this comedian at Dropout, and he does this thing where like he was borrowing from the mob, bro. Like he was getting money from the weirdest places, trying to keep this I don't even want to call
Ponzi
it a
scheme.
con. Yeah, it's a
Ponzi
Ponzi.
scheme.
Basically it's a Ponzi scheme, but it's the most ill-conceived Ponzi scheme of all time. It made no sense.
Well,
And
it would only
now,
work if the studios were involved with it. That was what we learned pretty early on was
Right.
the case, was that the studios and the theaters were like, we're not
they're
signing
like,
on to this.
hey, they're like, hey, you know what? That's a pretty good deal. No thanks. Startup Movie Pass, AMC Movie Pass. Thank you. They just started their own.
Yep.
And, why would they rely on this service? What they should have done was corner the market and then go to the theaters and be like, hey, if you want your stuff on here, you got to play ball. They jumped the gun. Anyways, the whole thing was not going to work out. It was a cool idea for the movie theaters at best. And the price point was way too low. And anyone that signed up for it either got a great deal or got scammed. And there's really no in between. No one got a reasonable deal out of the thing. But the idea of mogul, even though I know who it's coming from and I know that it's probably going to fail and someone's going to get conned, I still want to try it.
Well, also to any fears you might have, it's not the same guy. So the guy that you're thinking of that was borrowing all that money, that was Mitch Lowe. He was a scumbag. But the guy that has it now, Stacey Spikes, I think is his name. He was one of the original, because MoviePass existed at first, and it was actually a lot more sensible. It cost a little bit more, and it made more sense for people that go to the movies a lot, but also save a little bit of money too. It was when Mitch Lowe took over, where he pushed it down to like $10 a month, and you got to see like any movie you wanted to, and it was just so stupid, like the cost effectiveness of it. So Stacey Spikes rebought it like a year after he had to, Mitch Lowe had to sell it because he was stupid. So it's that guy. It's actually a much better person. He's a little bit too focused on politically. He's a little, but as far as CEO, he's a lot better than Mitch Lowe.
Well, you guys know what isn't a Ponzi scheme? Our super chats. We got caveat ties for $2. Check out Box Office Tycoon Group on Criticlist, which is what Odin was just talking about. All right, guys. So we had a lot to talk about today, and we talked about it. I want to thank my fantastic panel of nerds, especially Mr. H, because I know it's really late there in the UK, but I appreciate him hanging out and taking time out of his day to be with this fantastic group of nerds. Odin from OMB Reviews, any final thoughts on what we talked about today, and where can people find more of you?
Yeah, you can find me at OMB Reviews on Twitter/X, on YouTube, on Rumble, all the places like that. Box Office Breakdown video will go live sometime tomorrow around 3 p.m. And you can also read my articles every week. I do a Box Office Breakdown article, not nearly as long as my videos, over at GeesyGamers.com. You can check me out over there as well. All
right, and Tom Connors Jr., what do you like?
I like turtles.
There you go.
But it's pretty clear that
God, I love being a turtle!
Indeed. Any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
Well, you could find me over at Midnight's Edge After Dark, and all those fine places wherever hot dogs are sold.
And guys, I hope that this stream is evidence that there is no drama between Tom Connors Jr. and Mr. H. They got along perfectly throughout the course of this live stream. They were very civil to one another. Mr. H, thank you for being here today. Any final thoughts? Where can people find more of you?
All right, mate. Well, you can find me more featured on my channel over on Mr. H Reviews, but I would encourage you to skip that altogether. 400,000 plus, subscribers. Skip that. Go check out Culture Casino over on the Culture Casino channel on YouTube and Rumble and all of that, mate. So do check him out. Oh, and check him out on X because he does crazy stuff that Mr. Dutch Butters was kind enough to share with you all.
Yes, I would like to point out Culture Casino is a friend of the show, and I wish he could have been here today with Mr. H, but unfortunately the scheduling just didn't work out. But Mr. H, thank you so much for being here. Get back to lifting weights. It looks like you lost some muscle mass there.
Oh, yeah, about 100 pounds, yeah.
There you go. All right, Brian from the Popcast, you got the Brain Show coming along, but any final thoughts on what we talked about today, and where can people find more of you?
Final thoughts, I can't wait to see what goes on with Mogul. That sounds great. Honestly, it sounds like if Odin made an app, that's what it would be. So I'm totally interested in that. Everything else, love hanging out with you guys. I do have my DC channel is cranking right now. I'm doing videos every couple days, all about DC. So it's called DC Unleashed. You can find it on YouTube. DC Unleashed has my cartoon avatar. Someone said recently, like, it's always the neckbeards in their little studio with built, skinny, muscular avatars. I'm like, yeah, because who wants to put a fat 40-year-old guy as their avatar? But there you go. But go check it out because I'm doing a video every couple days and it's going well. I think I'm going to really, really go hardcore on that channel. And of course, the Brain Show is going to be starting in the next 10 minutes.
Yep, and you guys, once the stream ends, will automatically be directed over to the Brain Show. So it's just stay tuned. Technology is wonderful. Dutch Butters.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts and what's going on with the Dutch Butters Gaming channel?
I know.
Nerd. It's
Dutch
now
Butters
been
Gaming.
rebranded to the Dutch Butters Gaming channel.
Yeah. Wow. I don't have really any final thoughts. I found today's topics to be mostly boring and stuff I really don't like to talk about anyway. That's what we talk about every week all the time. So, I love you, Matt, but it is what it is. At least we didn't talk about Star Wars and Star Trek all day. So that was a good thing.
I love this show because there was no Star Wars.
Yeah. Mr. H, awesome to see you and have you on the show as always.
Appreciate it, mate. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of you and the diving crew.
I'm looking forward to seeing your cheeks next time I see you. I think you're pretty soon, right? So,
yeah.
Your sweet cheeks.
On Dutch Butters Gaming, we have rebranded that. I just woke up one morning and Salty and said, we're pulling the trigger. And I'm like, okay, here we go. So Dutch Butters Gaming now. Finally now, after 618.8 hours in Helldivers, I'm finally going to reach the level cap on Monday night. So we're going to do a stream with that where me and Salty are both going to hit level 150 at the same time. So that's going to be some fun. And then we're going to play Helldivers again for a little while. So I got to figure out some other games to play. We're looking at some other things to do with our crew over there. So every Monday nights and then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday mornings we're streaming. And then Tuesdays is our Helldivers podcast. And then we also do probably once or twice a month, we do another podcast called Weekend Respawn, which is for our members only. So we're having a lot of fun over there playing games and doing what we do. So come join us over there at Dutch Butters Gaming, guys. It's super fun.
Sweet Jesus.
All right, guys. And we got a $2 Australian super chat from Hemorrhoid Hurts. Dang it, I slept in. He's all the way over in Australia, so we don't blame you for sleeping in, Hemorrhoid. Just be sure to check out the replay and appreciate you as always. And speaking about appreciative, we have our super chatters today that I want to give big shout outs to. We got Mark Daly, who gave us numerous super chats. Thank you so much, Mark. John Yulden, Kaliki Oki, Ryan, fuck you, Fat Ho, Mexican Iron Man, Caveat Ties, and Hemorrhoid Hurts. You guys are awesome. We really appreciate all the support that you guys throw our way. And you're one of the reasons why we keep doing the show. Next week, I'm going to insist that Dutch Butters pick the topics because apparently I'm really bad at my job.
No, you're good at picking the topics. You're great at doing it.
It's so boring and the conversation doesn't move or anything like that.
No, you're doing great.
I'm surprised we didn't talk about the Superman rumors, to be honest with you. But
so
I thought you were going to segue off of that.
It's all right. If you want Superman rumors, go to DC Unleashed.
To be perfectly honest, I've been really pleased with the topics in the last few shows because we haven't been talking about the stock market and cryptocurrency and stuff. So it's been good. It's been good.
Well,
there's a narrow range of topics that Dutch wants to talk about.
Yeah, and generally, if Matt picks a topic that I can look at, and there's 2 paragraphs is my max that I read on an article.
Right.
So if it's one of these deadline things, it's 10,000 words. I'm like, bro, I'm not doing that.
Bro.
It's not happening. But yeah.
Well, next week, Salty Saturday, the topics will be picked by Dutch Butters.
No, they won't.
Hosted by Tom Connors Jr. Apparently, he knows what to talk about, and I don't.
The start time will be 10, but we'll be here around 11:30.
Yeah.
It'll be
watch me play
5 minutes long, and we throw you to the Brain Show.
I'll just be happy to be here. That's it.
The guys,
guys. Yes. All right, guys. So thank you for tuning in. Next week,
this episode, we're going to spend the next hour talking about how crappy Zack Snyder is, and then we're going to talk about how bad Mutant Mayhem is. That's...
There you go. That's next week's show. Same salty time, same salty channel, and until next week, Stay salty, my friends.
Yep.